Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Hello and good morning to you. It is Thursday, the 16th of June. And, well, it's not that we don't have a lot of things we can discuss. I do not know how much else I have to say about the topics that have certainly been at the top of our thoughts all of this week thus far. I frankly have, I think, shared everything that I can with you. And with that said, I'd like to maybe dip into some of the stories that we have not talked about because they were supplanted by the horror in Orlando. One of those is a local story, and it is the issue of the Pittsburgh Public Schools attempting to find a superintendent as the current superintendent, Linda Lane, intends to leave literally in a few weeks at the end of this month. And as we know, there was a big cry of delight when they found a guy in Florida, and he was announced, great applause, and his name is Hamlet. Which is a hell of a name. Why am I blanking on the rest of his name? Anthony Hamlet. And we heard that he had turned around schools in the district in Florida where he was, especially focusing on underachieving students and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure you know all this, but then we find something a little disturbing. And this is a result of journalism. In fact, I think our Chris Potter had a great deal to do with it. So what happened is reporters for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Potter, Molly Bourne, I believe, being reporters, looked at Anthony Hamlet's resume and then did due diligence, right? And they wrote a story and said, some things don't seem to add up here. Some of what he's claiming in terms of results gotten about, student success do not seem to match the numbers that so there was a red flag right away. And then they kept up their digging and came up with something even more troubling to a lot of people. And that was that in his resume, two things seemed to be pretty much lifted verbatim from other sources, including, I believe, where he described his educational philosophy or something. It was exactly the same as something that had appeared, I believe, in a newspaper in Maryland. Whatever. There was also some other. So now we have exaggeration on his resume, and we have plagiarism. And we also find out that the school board hired a guy to do the search who had never done a search. The whole thing, so badly done. And I have to tell you this. I think from what I've seen of this man, Hamlet, he is a well-intentioned, probably a good guy who really goofed. He should know, why do people do this? Why do they exaggerate? It can be found out. He gambled and won initially because clearly the Pittsburgh School Board and the search committee did not do due diligence. But he hadn't counted on some newspaper reporters doing it. There were initial cries that this was racism, that blacks are always held to a higher standard, and that fell on deaf ear with me in this particular case, because these things coming up about any candidate would have created great concern, I would think. So now the Pittsburgh School Board has gotten itself into a big effing mess. Thank you very much. Well done. Really well done. Because this guy quit his job because he was told he had a job. And if you think he ain't going to sue us, this is going to cost us. We will not have a superintendent. And those who say that he simply cannot be the superintendent, I think are on pretty strong grounds, because in the schools that he would oversee, if a student were to write a paper in which they lifted whole things out of the Washington Post editorial and this and that and attributed it to themselves, they'd flunk. It's not allowed. And so those who say you can't have the superintendent set an example like that when the students under him would be held to a higher standard. I believe 2 of the school board members have already said this is probably a deal breaker for them. The others are embarrassed and not saying much of anything, but this is a just friggin' disaster. Unbelievable. I mean, I have chaired a search committee myself as a member of a board. It is a very difficult job, and it requires incredible work. And everything I have read about how this, and believe me, the job I was filling was nowhere near as important a position as filling the head of a large urban school district with all of those children's futures in jeopardy. You've got to have great leadership. So we have been badly, brings up lots of things. When voters vote the people of Pittsburgh voted these people in district elections. I'm willing to bet that maybe 1 or 2% of all voters in Pittsburgh who voted in the school board election, and there's next to none who do, didn't have a clue who these people were. Right? So it brings up the issue of, is this the way to run a large school district? To have indifferent, ignorant voters, come on, seriously, choose people who may have absolutely no experience in doing what they have to do, including doing a national search for a super. So here we got it. And I must say, this guy is toast. And I feel sorry for him. I do. I feel sorry for the guy. He made a mistake, no doubt, but boy, he was aided and abetted by total incompetence on the part of the search committee for the school board. And I think that goes to the top. The president of the board, a woman named Holly, I believe, is her last name. She should be. And the racial element doesn't seem to be working at all either, because leaders of the Urban League, Esther Bush, the Hill District Education Council, the Black BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project, that's Tim Stevens, all have said that this cannot go forward. So, this guy's toast. The Pittsburgh schools do not have a superintendent, and it's all because of the total incompetence of the school board. And I mean, it is so depressing and distressing. And I have no more to say about it. I don't know what else to say. It's just sad. Really sad. And poor Linda Lane, who's done a pretty good job and who clearly wants to retire, I got a feeling she's going to be having to hang around for a while, because there's got to be somebody at the head while they actually do the job again and maybe do it right. And we'll probably be taxpayers of the city of Pittsburgh are probably going to end up paying 2 superintendents for a while, because we'll have to pay Mr. Hamlet. I'm willing to bet you. And we'll have to pay whoever ends up getting the job, because he's not going to get the job. Okay, we've got a call. Hello?
Hello, Lynn.
Yes.
Hey, did you happen to see, to change the subject a little bit, Ed Rendell said that Elizabeth Warren wasn't ready to be vice president?
He did?
Yeah,
Why would I? Well,
with him.
That's his opinion.
Opinion, right, but here in the middle of the election, you got to know better than that. I mean, Rendell's okay. I mean, he was okay governor. I'm not.
I don't know about that, but I'll tell you,
He's
he's tight with the Clintons. And
right, I know
so the fact that he said that might mean that she doesn't, they're just trying to, I don't know, maybe the Clintons don't want her either.
President, to be honest with you. I think the woman's a smart woman.
Oh, God,
and she's
no doubt.
Right where the American people are.
Yeah.
And I would rather have her than Hillary, to be honest with you.
Sure. Well,
if both of them are on, that's great, even better, because she'll really help her. I hope the hell she picks her, but
I would be very surprised.
Because after he made that remark, I thought, they don't want her.
Apparently not. I wouldn't think he'd speak without some sense of what the Clintons wanted. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I hadn't heard
Why
it.
do you speak ill of your party?
I don't know.
I don't understand to say that during an election time.
I don't
know.
know.
Smarter than that.
Well, Ed Rendell has I think, a capacity to be a little bit of a loose cannon, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about him.
Well, that's weird.
I
think
really
he's
do.
Mafia, honestly, God.
He looks like it, but I don't know.
God, I think I mean, there's things I like about him, but he always reminds me of that.
Yeah, because he just looks like and sounds like
the voice of it.
Yeah, like a thug. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I was surprised when he saw it.
Well, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, because I was hoping she was going to pick her, because I'm not crazy about that young Latino guy. I mean, he's great and everything, but he's younger. I'd rather
Wet behind the ears. Yeah, I don't know that he's ready. I'm certainly
Yeah,
Warren
right.
would be a better pick than that. I have no idea
And
who they're
I don't
looking
really
at.
care for Kane that much or any of those ones.
No.
Some of her choices are just like,
I know.
And Bernie, I don't think she's going to go that
No. And I wouldn't go to Bernie either.
No, and I think maybe make him Secretary of Labor or something, maybe.
That'd be a great idea.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
But, yeah, I hope she picks, I'd hope she pick her, but I guess not. I don't know.
We'll find out.
Disappointing.
Okay.
Oh, another thing I want to say. Do you think Trump is going to actually get picked as a nominee?
I'm starting to wonder because, I mean, it is, that my greatest fear is that they absolutely will deny him because quite clearly, one of his major campaign people said on TV this morning, maybe on CNN, he said, look, if the Republican Party can't get behind Trump, then they should just shut the hell up.
Right.
There is I got a feeling that what we got is a Republican Party that is just desperately going to try to hold their people in Congress and limit the damage, but they're scared to death of Trump. I don't blame them. I don't know what's going to happen, but the way it's shaking out, Trump is going to send them to an extraordinary disaster.
And he doesn't want to be known as a choker because he called Romney and McCain a choker.
Yeah.
So he's going to lose. I don't care what anybody says now. I believe he's going to lose.
Yes.
Just the way he's going his route.
Well, I mean, when you look at the polls,
Right.
at those damn polls, but he's got, that solid third of Americans. They were always there. They're the Tea Party, the whatever. They're always there. That solid third is with him. And a good 2/3, almost, is saying never, under any circumstances would I vote for this man. And those people who are saying never are Republicans, Democrats, and Independents.
Thank God.
He ain't going to win.
No, I hope not.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Nice talking to you. Bye.
Yeah. But I've always said we've got to assume he can, because the last thing anyone needs to do is assume that Hillary's a shoo-in, because it ain't over till it's over. But what did he say? Come on. Here it is. He essentially said that Barack Obama supports the terrorists, right? I mean, I hadn't quite seen this. In a statement to the Associated Press, Trump said that Obama, quote, continues to prioritize our enemy over the American people. Well, that's just flat out calling the president a traitor. Now, there's that 30% who still think Obama's not an American and they think he's a Muslim. That resonates with that crowd. But that's it. And 30% doesn't win you anything. I can't imagine what's going to happen, frankly. And I know we're all impatient. We just want it over. We want an answer. But we're going to have to just sit it out and let it play out. The other story that we did not discuss at all, because to me, it's so painful I can't even imagine it. It's the other horror in Orlando, this poor child. It's beyond, any parent trying to imagine themselves in that father's shoes. You can't even imagine how you could go on living. You can't even it would be the most horrific. Oh, dear God. So let me tell you something. Disney World is on the hook for this. Big time. I mean, there's not a jury anywhere in this country that wouldn't give this family $500 gazillion million. Not that they even friggin' want it. But how? I mean, it's just, you can't have a swimming pool, a private pool in your yard without having fencing around. I mean, if somebody drowns in your pool, you're liable. That's it. Unless you have safeguarded it. Here's Disney with a man-made body of water. And they do post it, no swimming. Fine. They weren't swimming. The kid wasn't swimming. He had his feet in the water. If that sign said alligators, do you think the father would have let his child anywhere near that place? So, my God. I saw that the head of Disney, Robert Iger, called the parents yesterday. I cannot imagine that phone call. What the hell do you say? I'm sorry. We have a call. Hello? Hello?
Yes. Is this the Lynn Cullen show?
Yes, it is.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to speak with Lynn.
This is she. This is she. This is she. You are talking to her.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're on air.
Yes, it's been a while since I've talked to you. I kind of lost track. Jim of Shadyside here.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Hi, Jim. Yeah. I don't have a call. This is a little bit of a, nobody answers the phone. We just stick you on. Oh. That's what that was about. So,
I see.
Hi.
Yeah, I was watching you, and you were gesticulating and going on something about some. I hope I'm not trying to change the subject back to Trumpism.
Go ahead. Do whatever you want.
You're familiar with Sinclair Lewis. He was from your neck of the woods up there in Wisconsin, Minnesota, he wrote a couple of real stemwinder books. But in 1935, he wrote a book called It Can't Happen Here. And it basically was a satirical study of a homegrown Native American fascist
right.
who most closely resembles, from everything we've seen about Trump and his shenanigans, this anti-hero of this book. He had Sinclair Lewis had written Elmer Gantry and Babbitt and Main Street.
Right.
The more familiar books.
Right.
But It Can't Happen Here is available, and I'm rereading it on the internet. It's one of those PDF files. But it is a fascinating piece of satire because the anti-hero is named Buzz Windrop. Buzz Windrop. And I'm telling you, it so closely resembles the Donald that
Isn't that something?
You got to laugh.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, I recommend it highly to your listeners because it's uncannily close to the Donald.
Well, of course, the book's title, It Can't Happen Here, suggests the opposite, that, of course,
yes.
It can.
Right. And he was writing from the standpoint of witnessing what was going on in Italy with the native fascism in Italy.
Yes.
And the rise of Nazism in Germany, and he just said, I gotta tackle this because it can possibly really reflect on the future of American politics. And,
incredible. So he was prescient. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's hard. It is really. I mean, this is how fascism comes to America. It comes in this kind of a persona, and anybody who thinks he's not a fascistic threat is I don't know. They're nuts.
hopefully the blinders will come off, but I hope it doesn't come off with the upper echelon of the GOP before too much more damage is done. I think it's going to bode well for Clinton and progressive
Of course.
Politics. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you ferreted me out, and thank you. Nice to hear from you again.
I finally picked up a city paper, and I said, I've been missing Lynn all these year or so. What the heck?
Man. So, hi, Jim, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, dear.
Okay.
I'll talk with you again.
Okay, bye-bye. So, these stories. You know, if Orlando had a horoscope, boy, its stars were crossed in those, 3 days? Was it 3 days that you had that poor young singer shot, and then the 49, and then all the wounded, and now this little 2-year-old boy. Unbelievable. Well, as I said, I'm pretty talked out about guns and Trump and homophobia, but all of those things, of course, will continue to demand that we do keep our focus. I was heartened to see the filibuster, that just sort of spontaneous filibuster that occurred in the U.S. Senate yesterday by Democrats, and apparently our own Patrick Toomey trying desperately to get himself, he's running scared. That shows that Toomey's running scared. He's back floating some kind of gun control measure that would do nothing. So, these are extraordinary times. Truly. Were you at that parade yesterday? Jeez. Wasn't that... There was something sort of cute about it. There was something so small town about it. I mean, it's not really a parade. Yeah, it was a parade. I mean, there were like a few marching bands and an ambulance or two, and of course, a politician walking here and walking there, and then just ducky boats with people on waving. And you thought, who the hell are they? What is that? It was so bizarre, I thought, and cute, really cute. And these crowd estimates, by the way, are so off the charts. I don't know. There's a story somewhere. Was it in the PG today that there's no way, probably that there were 400,000 people downtown. I don't think so. It doesn't matter. There were a bunch of happy folks, and the neat thing is it was an extraordinarily happy, well-behaved family crowd. Part of that probably comes from having the parade start in the morning. So there was no alcohol screwing things up. That's my guess. But I guess a good time was had by all. I, of course, got the hell out of Dodge as fast as I could. I finished the show up and ran. But I did watch on TV, and it was awfully cute. So, Pittsburgh is sort of really a sports mecca right now. And, of course, another major sport, golf, is having its big to-do starting today. The weather is not cooperating, it appears, but the U.S. Open begins today at Oakmont. And I have to tell you, I think the New York Times has the best sports section in the country. And I just want to read a little of what they say today about Oakmont. Just a little. No one dares to diss Oakmont. It's bad karma. It's self-defeating. As one of the most arduous golf courses in North America, Oakmont is approached with a mix of reverence and fright. It has been humbling golfers since before World War I. This will be the 9th time Oakmont has hosted the U.S. Open, the most of any venue, and it has never failed to show up a vast majority of the field. What is the point of whining about the course after a dreadful round? Is misadventure not to be expected here? It's Oakmont. It would be like complaining that a marathon is tiring. A rough round at Oakmont is something to celebrate because most rounds are closer to horrifying. Phil Mickelson assessed the layout that awaits the field as, quote, the hardest course in the world. And then they have a quote from the guy who created Oakmont, the founder, W.C. Founds, I guess his name is pronounced. Well, no, this guy is the son of the founder. And because he was always hearing criticism of the course being just simply ridiculously impossible. And to that criticism of the course's unrelenting challenges, he said this, and the Times says this should serve as a mantra for Oakmont ever since. And here it is. Let the clumsy, the spineless, the alibi artist stand aside. So, Oakmont, underway this morning. I don't know if they're going to get all the first round in. Also, by the way, on the sports page of the New York Times today, I came upon this. You know, the Olympics is coming up in Rio, which is a disaster. I mean, Rio is a disaster. Any way you want to take a look at it. It's in a country that is literally politically falling apart at the seams. There doesn't even seem to be much of a government there anymore. The pollution of their waters, where the aquatic sports will have to, you know, the what do you call it? The sculling and the what else? What else uses not swimming pool stuff, but that kind of stuff. Those athletes are really at risk because the waters they will be plying are sewage. I want to again raise a glass to one of the most extraordinarily inept governing bodies in the world, the International Olympic Committee. Well done as usual. Jeez. And of course, Zika. So, the athletes have to worry about contracting some horrific bacterial infection from the waters, and they have to worry about getting bitten by the wrong mosquito. And as you know, a number of athletes for whom this is their lifelong goal have pulled out. They said, it's not worth it, I'm not doing it. They're young, they're of childbearing age, and they just can't see risking that. So it's really something. And in the Times today is a story about the coach of the men's U.S. volleyball coach. And he's 44 years old, and he is preserving his sperm before he goes, which seems like actually a very smart thing to do. He's preserving his sperm to use in case he were to be infected, because he said, my wife and I would like to have another child, and he just wants to ensure that that child will not have these horrific defects that come from Zika. Zika really is this one's a scary one. It is, isn't it? Because first of all, it's already in this country. It's already in this state. It's already in the city. Because you had the researcher at the University of Pittsburgh who somehow managed to infect herself. What the hell she's doing with Zika virus in the first place, I'm not quite sure. And because it spreads, apparently, rather easily, so they think it spreads with oral sex and spreads with genital sex, that's troublesome. So we already have one person in the city that's carrying it. And who knows? And in the southern United States, they're going to expect. And by the way, the Republicans in the Congress who fell all over that Ebola thing, because, those were Africans. This was something coming out of Africa or something, I guess. I don't know. I think anytime it's black people, they freak. They're not letting go of the kind of funding that we need, according to according to the CDC and all our people that are really looking at this as a potential frightening public safety threat. They're not giving them the money they're asking for. Now, if they asked for a few lethal devices meant to kill people in a military situation, man, those Republicans would be throwing as much trillions of dollars at them as they wanted, and then some. Right? Ugh. Let me see. Do I have anything? Oh, I got one other thing that's not on our usual topics, and then I guess I'll go back to the usual topics. So London has a Muslim mayor, which is really something, I think. And by the way, there's breaking news out of England that I just saw right before I came into the building. That's really, they've got this Brexit vote coming up in a week or so, I believe, whether or not they'll stay in the European Union. And one of the members of Parliament who is very, very much on the bandwagon of staying in was today stabbed and shot at some public event. This does not happen in England. It happens here. And I believe what I saw, some guy came up, shot him, stabbed him, and I believe he's in critical condition. Member of Parliament. What a world. What a world. So, get what London's mayor did the other day. He announced a ban on ads on the transit system, on the subways and buses, that he said fat shame. Now, wow, where'd that come from? But he did. He has banned these ads from London's public transportation system, saying that these messages encourage unhealthy body images for young women. The ad that got him was an ad of a toned woman in a bikini, and it said, "Are you beach body ready?" It's an ad for a dietary supplement. And a number of these ads had been defaced on the subways, and so it started getting coverage that some women were just so sick and tired of having, a certain body stuck in front of them. Is that this is the body you should have, this is the body you should have, this is the body you should have. And he just flat out said this: "As the father of 2 teenage girls, I'm extremely concerned about this kind of advertising which can demean people, particularly women, and make them ashamed of their bodies." Well, this is rather controversial, because some people are suggesting, that's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because he's a Muslim and he just doesn't want scantily clad women's pictures all over. But that's not it. I don't think that's it. He's joining a growing group of people who realize the damage that is being done, especially to young girls. All you got to do is talk to a young girl. They got the message. They got the message as early as 6, 7 years old about the body they're supposed to have. And as you know, we come in different shapes and sizes. And there are countries that are starting to act. France, Israel, Italy, Spain have all enacted some kind of federal policies that prevent models with sort of these, skeletal bodies from working. They won't, you can't use them in ads. Fat shaming. And the reason that the mayor said you have to do this is because if you're paging through a magazine and you're assaulted with page after page of, the same body, this is what a woman looks like, this is what a woman looks like, and it bears no resemblance to what the hell you see when you look in a mirror, the younger you are, the more damaging, I can tell you, that is. And he said, I'm banning it on the subways and on the buses because subways and buses have captive audiences. You're sitting there, and there, right there in front of you, is that picture. And you can't turn the page, and you can't avoid it. And so he's saying in those kinds of public venues where somebody is just stuck, we ain't going to have it. Don't you wish that was an issue like we'd be dealing with now as opposed to what we're dealing with? Don't you wish? So Trump, who got the endorsement of the National Rifle Association, is now freaking them out. Because he might be a little dictator in the making, but even he sees how unbelievably absurd it is if you pretend to want to protect the American people, to allow people on the FBI's FBI's suspect terrorist list to be able to walk in and buy weapons of mass destruction. Even Donald Trump thinks that's stupid. Listen to a video, this statement from a video from Al-Qaeda. It's one of their recruitment videos for these lone wolf actors. Here's what it says. America is absolutely awash with easily obtainable firearms. So what are you waiting for? Al-Qaeda knows that we're aiding and abetting them by our policies. The National Rifle Association is complicit with Al-Qaeda. The Republicans and every other gun nut in this country who refuse commonsensical gun control are complicit in every one of these mass shootings. Oh, but if we all had guns, it wouldn't have happened. There was a guy, there was an off-duty police officer in that club with a gun. And then I came upon this, never even heard of this one. You know what? In any other country, what I'm about to tell you would have been a huge story. In this country, I didn't even know it. Here it is. A few weeks ago, in Houston, a 25-year-old Afghan war veteran walked up to a stranger sitting in his car at a car wash and shot him in the neck while railing about homosexuals and Jews. He fired off 212 rounds from an assault rifle, hitting a police helicopter, a nearby gas station which burst into flames. The police said a neighbor who heard the shooting came running with his gun and was shot himself. You know, the mass killer at Pulse, according to the way gun nuts think, was a good guy with a gun until he wasn't. Because they see anybody has the right to have these guns. And they say this is how we keep safe, all us good guys with our guns. Until they're not. Until like this guy in Houston. Until that guy in the theater. Until this one here and there. The assumption that all these people who want guns are good guys with guns is absurd on its face. When you've got ISIS actively calling for Americans and lone wolf attacker Americans to take advantage of these absurd, well, I was going to say gun laws, there aren't any, of these absurd laws, and take the ISIS war to the streets and the theaters and the clubs and the schools, whatever, of our country, to suggest that our lax gun laws are not a major national security threat. And you know, Republicans are supposed to be really big on national security. They see threats everywhere. Man, they got boogeymen under every bed. And yet they're the ones. And I'm throwing in a bunch of Democrats too. These spineless shills for the National Rifle Association and firearms manufacturers are putting all of us at great risk. And it is a national security risk when you've got our enemy, ISIS, saying, hey, guys, the guns are there. Come on, pick them up and do our work. All you folks who cling to your guns are aiding and abetting the murderous terror of the Islamic State. You are. The facts are clear. They're out there. Nobody's hiding anything. There it is. Well done. Well done. Chuck writes, a few thoughts. Trump won't be the next president, but it's not because he doesn't have the numbers to beat Hillary. He won't be the next president because he will not come out of the convention with the nomination. You know that's my fear, because I want him to have it. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Chuck says either by his own hand or by the hands of the GOP. My crystal ball says he will not be running come Labor Day. I mean, this is, you guys have floated this idea, and you have a willing listener in me, and I do agree that it's pretty easy to argue that Donald Trump could not bear being a loser, and if he sees that that's where it's heading, that he would find some way to get out. And others who say part of what he's doing by giving the finger to the Republican Party and what he's doing now, the sort of like total loose cannon, the doubling down, when the whole party apparatus is disavowing everything he's saying, that he's trying, maybe, to get them to do exactly that. If he won't pull out himself, he's trying to get them to figure out a way to knock him off. I could argue that. I really could. Easily. That if anyone might be looking for an exit strategy right now, it might well be Donald Trump. And then Chuck writes in regard to Disney, when I took my young daughters to Disney World, I remember commenting to my wife about alligators on the property, and we both assumed alligators could simply not be an issue there. We thought at the time there's no way that Disney would permit alligators on their property. You would think so. You would think so. It's amazing, isn't it? As you know, I'm not a fan of Disney, and I was subjected to an entire week at Disney World in my capacity as a feature reporter for WTAE TV, and it might have been like the most awful week of my life. I so detested that place, and I felt like I was in a fascist wonderland. That's what I did feel. I've never been more controlled, it was like being in, behind the Iron Curtain, where there was somebody dogging my steps every second, my photographer's steps, making sure we didn't take a picture of the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. Their control over that experience is beyond belief. So how do alligators slip through? How? Geez, they wouldn't let me take a picture of some dead mice that were going to be fed to some of their carnivorous birds. But alligators in the ponds with little kids, no fences, nothing. And alligators walk out of water too. Yeah, so, my God, how did that escape the obsessive-compulsive attention to detail I saw there? How? Amazing. I wanted to take a picture of those dead mice. They were lying in a big heap, a bunch of dead mice, because I intended to do a funny little bit, showing Mickey Mouse at the Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, and how does Mickey know? It's like Soylent Green. Does Mickey know that his cousins are lying in heaps dead, that they're feeding mice like him to the birds on Discovery Island. I was so fed up by that point, I was going to do it. I wanted to do it. And I told my photographer, I remember, sidled up to him, I said, don't look like you're shooting it. Just shoot from the hip, but get those mice. So I did, he did, I wrote the story, I did slip it in, and guess what? It never aired. That had never happened to me in my life. And it's because the producer of our show, which was, I guess, Good Morning Pittsburgh or something, I don't know, AM Pittsburgh, I don't know what the hell it was, I don't even remember. She, of course, allowed Disney to look at everything that was going to go on. And so when they saw that, they said, no way, and she took it out. Marlene DeMarco. I don't remember names, but Marlene, I remember yours. They had the most amazing underground garbage system. I think I've told you this a million times. It was beyond belief. It was like futuristic. I mean, this is 1983 or something. But it was, to me, so futuristic, it was beyond belief. I said, oh my God. Why don't we got to show people this. This is like the future. This is the future. Wow. You could not take pictures of any of this. No, we are simply showing this to you. I said, but my God, this is amazing. Why wouldn't you want? No. So why? Here was the answer from the fascistic little follower I had. You cannot show it because there is no garbage in the Magic Kingdom. Okay. Man, I felt like I'd fallen down some friggin' wormhole. I could not wait. I remember I was on the phone to the news director saying, "Get me out of here!" I feel like I'm in the Manchurian Candidate. Jesus, these people are frightening. Oh, Disney World, fine. Okay, what we got here? Okay, just a few items from Nicholas Kristof's column I will leave you with in the New York Times today. Again, there's some numbers here. Kristof likes numbers, and I know numbers sort of go in one ear and out the other, but try to take them in. Over the last 2 decades, 20 years, Canada has had 8 mass shootings. 8 in 20 years. Just this month, the United States has had 20. Yeah, and you can't name them, can you? You don't know. We've had 20 mass shootings? Who knew? News is the unusual. So mass shootings are not unusual in this country, so they're not even reported. I mean, they're reported locally where they happen, but they don't rise to our attention. 20 years, just to our north, same kind of folks as us. 20 years, 8 mass shootings, 1 month here. 20 mass shootings. And guess what? Canada's got more Syrian refugees in it than we have. I mean, they've been saying, come on in, you poor Syrians, come on in. They're letting in Syrians left and right. Are they having terrorist attacks? They have 10 times the number of Syrian refugees that our country has. Canada's population is over 3% Muslim. Ours is about 1% Muslim. Yet Canada has not had massacres like the one we just had, or the one in December in San Bernardino. So perhaps, maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't the Muslims, huh? It's the guns. In this country, the Orlando killer would have been legally barred from buying lawn darts. They've been banned as unsafe. In our country, he would have been unable to drive a car that didn't pass a safety inspection or that lacked insurance. In this country, he couldn't have purchased a black water gun without an orange tip on it because that would have been too dangerous. But no problem for him to buy an assault rifle that can kill hundreds like that. If this is not the definition of national insanity, then please somebody tell me what it is. What is it? It's staggering. We have a so-called representative Congress composed of people that will not put a ban on people on the FBI's terrorist watch list to buy an assault rifle. You know, you hear the cops are saying now that they're under attack because Black Lives Matter, and so now we got to say Blue Lives Matter and all this kind of stuff. Let me give you a statistic, please, okay? In the United States, more preschoolers up to the age of 4, that's a cutoff, are shot dead every year than police officers are. Preschoolers are being killed by guns, much more so than our police. Is not that the definition of insanity? Okay. Preaching to the choir. Okay. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.